Hello student, this is Palla Darbari, your host, and you're watching Palla Darbari classes. In this video, we will discuss the first chapter of Macroeconomics, class 12th, that is Introduction to Macroeconomics. See the topic that we will discuss in this chapter. The first topic is meaning of macroeconomics. Second is economic school of thought. Third is goods and services. Fourth, stock and flow. And fifth, circular flow model. Let us start the session with the meaning of the macroeconomics. The word macro comes from the Greek word macros, which means large. Macroeconomic is concerned about the large section of the economy or the economy as a whole. It is that branch of economics which deals with the economic activities of all the economic spheres. Unlike microeconomics, macroeconomic does not study only one individual. Rather, macroeconomic studies the behavior, problems, and economic situations of all the consumers at a time. That is why it is said macroeconomic is the study of economics as a whole. In the macroeconomics, four sectors exist. Let us see the economic sectors according to the macroeconomics. The first economic sector is household. Second is firm. Third is government. And the fourth is rest of the world or external sector. Let us see all the economic sectors one by one. The first economic sector is household. Household means single individual or group of individuals who are the consumers of goods and services. The households are the consumers of goods and services. Why? Because they consume goods and services. At the same time, households provide the factor services to the firm. For example, they provide land to the firm, they provide labor to the firm, they provide capital to the firm, they manage the activities of the firm. And in consideration of all these factor services, they get factor payment. For the land, they get rent. For the labor, they get salary and wages. For the capital, they get profit. For the management, they get profit, share of or percentage of profit. Let us see the second sector. The second economic sector is firm. It is that economic unit that undertake production process. To execute the production process, the firm hires factor services from the household, and in consideration of the factor services, the firm pay factor payment to the household. So the second economic sector is also clear. Let us see the third, that is government. Remember, similar to the firm, the government also participate in the production process. We know that PSUs are there. So what is the PSU? What the PSU do? They manufacture goods and services. So similar to the firm, the government also participate in the production process. They hire the factor services from the household and make them factor payment. The government also receives, this is what the government do. The government also receives money from the household and from the firm in the form of taxes, direct tax, indirect taxes. Firms also pay the direct tax, household also pay the direct tax or indirect taxes. The government make the payment to the household in the form of factor payment, for example, pension, for example, grants, scholarships. These are the transfer payment which the government is making to the household. Similarly, the government provides subsidies to the firm. In this way, in the form, when I say subsidies, it means that government provides goods at a lower price to the firm. So in this way, the government is helping the firm by providing the goods at a lower price. Some of the important functions which the government is providing it: administration services, maintaining law and order. In addition to this, government also ensures maintaining steady and the considerable economic growth. For this, the government make policies relating to education, health, heavy industries, etc. So we have seen that the government uh, contribute in the production activities. They make factor payment, they make transfer payment, they administer the law and order in the country. They also participate by making policies for the growth and development of the country. The last sector is rest of the world or the external sector. These sectors deal with the export and the import of goods and services. If a country sells the goods to the rest of the world, it is called export, goods sold. On the other hand, if the country purchases goods from rest of the world, it is called import. The export and the import of goods and services can be done by household and can be done by firm, can be done by government. Firm and the government carried out the import and export activities. Household also carried out the import activities. Mostly the household do not deal in the export activity. The household mostly deal in import activities. They purchase goods from foreign countries. Now let us see the interlinkage among economic sectors. When I say interlinkage, it means what? It means all the four sectors are interconnected with each other. For example, the firm and the household are interconnected with each other. How? Because firm provides factor payment, and in consideration of the factor payment, the household gives factor services. Or in a very simple word, we can say household work in a firm, and by working in a firm, the firm pay the money to the household. So both are interconnected. Clear? Let us see the interlinkage among economic sectors. Macroeconomics not only studies different economic sector. We have seen that the macroeconomic studies household, firm, government, and rest of the world. It not only studies the external sector, but it also studies the interlinkage that exists among these sectors. Interlinkage basically means the relationship or the dependency of one sector with the other sector. For example, household and the firm. Earlier also we have seen both household and the firms are interrelated. When I say interrelated, what it means? It means that the household provide factor services like land, labor, capital, etc. And in consideration of the factor services, the firm make factor payment to these households for rendering factor services. Firm also provide goods and services to the household. Whatever the goods the firm manufacture, it is being provided to the household. Household purchase the goods and services and make the payment. So here we can say that circular movement of goods and the circular movement of money is going on between the firm and the household. In this way we can say that the household and the firms are interconnected. The real flow and the money flow is continuously going on among household and the firm. So here we have seen how the firm and the household are interconnected with each other. So we have studied that in the macroeconomics or the macroeconomic studies the dependency of one sector to another sector. Now let us see the emergence of macroeconomics. Earlier, whenever we were using the term economics, we were talking about the microeconomics only. But after 1929, they introduced another branch, that is macroeconomics. Here we will study what is the need, why the second branch is being introduced. Let us see in detail. The need for a separate branch of economics, that is the macroeconomics, was felt inevitable during the Great Depression 1929. In the 1929, there was a crash in the American stock market, because of which there is a large scale unemployment. There was a poverty, there was food scarcity. The country was facing a severe problem. And microeconomics, the microeconomics always emphasized the full employment, and the microeconomics says or advocate that the market will solve the problems automatically of its own. During the time period of the Great Depression, microeconomics got flung to restore the market conditions. So during that time, it is being realized that we have to introduce another subject matter in the economics so that the problems should be solved. Because just to solve the problems, we study economics. So microeconomics proves helpless. So one more economic branch of economics is being introduced so that the condition should be solved, the problem should be solved, and the condition should be restored again. Remember one thing, the Great Depression can be treated as a landmark for the emergence of macroeconomics. Why? Because microeconomics was totally helpless. Before the advent of the Great Depression, the subject matter of the economic was only limited. It means everything is encircling around microeconomics before the Great Depression. This was dominated by and remember one thing, the microeconomic is being dominated by the classical school of thought. Now let us see the economic school of thought. How many school of thought do we have? Listen, there are two schools of economic thoughts. How many economic school of thought? There are two. One is classical school of thought and the other one is Keynesian school of thought. The classical school of thought advocate the concept of free market and the Keynesian school of thought advocate the concept of centrally planned economy. The classical school of thought advocate that the market will solve the problem of its own, whereas the Keynesian school of thought says that the government should intervene, otherwise the problem cannot be evaded out, problems cannot be solved of its own. Let us discuss all these school of thought separately in detail. Firstly, we will see the classical school of economic thought. This was popularized, the classical school of thought was popularized by economists like Adam Smith and David Ricardo. They advocate the laissez-faire economy, they advocate the free market economy, in which the role of the government was bare minimum. The government is supposed to administer the law and order in the country and is to look after the defense of the country. They don't have to do anything with the demand and supply. They asserted that in a free market economy, there always exists full employment. It means that no unemployment will be there. If any unemployment exists, if anybody is unemployed, then it will be automatically corrected by the market forces. It means that the problem will be solved automatically by the market forces, that is demand and supply. As per the classicals, the role of the government, as we have discussed, is bare minimum. They are to look after the defense of the country and to maintain law and order in the country. The classicals blindly believe and they chat supply creates its own demand, that is Say's laws. In a very simple word, they says that whatever comes in the market will be consumed. Supply creates its own demand. This statement implies that whatever is produced by the producers, there is always a demand for it. However, during the Great Depression, we have seen that during the Great Depression 1929, the classicals' assumptions broke down. What were the classicals' main assumption? Problem will be solved. All the problem will be solved automatically of its own, and unemployment will not be there. All the factors are fully employed. This paradigm was shattered. The Great Depression proved the path of emerges of macroeconomics. Great Depressions shows the path to the macroeconomics to come and hold the problems. This was due to the inability of the classical thought to explain the prolonged unemployment and the failure of market in the economy. They were totally flunked to tell the reason why the unemployment has emerged when they advocate that the problem will be solved, unemployment will be solved of its own. It was found, it's a very important one, this data can be asked in MCQs. It was found that during the period 1929 till 1933, the aggregate demand, total demand fell by 33%. Unemployment rose to 25%. We can easily imagine the problems. We can easily see how serious the problem was during that time period. So Keynesian school of thought, it was a warning, it was a request, it was a path for the macroeconomics to come and solve the problem. Let us see the second school of thought. The second school of economic thought is Keynesian school of thought. It was popularized by John Maynard Keynes. He advocated for the government intervention. He says that the government should interfere, otherwise the problem cannot be solved of its own. And this says that to pull the economy out of the low level of income and demand, the role of the government is mandatory. He propounded the slogan. He always used to say, dig the earth and fill the pit. Find the problems and solve the problem. It means dig the earth and fill the pit. To this, Keynes argued that an economy can never operate in full employment level. He says that the full employment, the classical theory that they says that the full employment will be there, full employment will be restored. They criticize and says that the theory of full employment is not possible because economy can never operate at full employment level. He also opposed laissez-faire and he advocated the concept of centrally planned economy. Now let us see the difference between classical and the Keynesian school of thought. The classical economists advocate free economy, whereas Keynesian economists believe in centrally planned economy. According to the classical economy, the role of the government is zero. Here the role of the government is mandatory. Second point of difference, these economists were a strong proponent of market and did not believe in the state intervention. They advocate the concept of the free market. They say that the market will solve the problems of its own. So they always support the market forces. They totally rely on the market forces and they totally oppose the state intervention. Opposite to that, the Keynesian school of thought believe that the state intervention should be there. Otherwise, the problem of unemployment cannot be solved. Classical school of thought believe that the microeconomics prevails in a longer run and the macroeconomics prevails in the short run. Once the problem will be solved, the government can move out. So it will prevail in the short period and microeconomics will prevail in the longer period. The economists that advocated the concept of the microeconomics or the classical school of thought are Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and those who advocated the concept of macroeconomics or who lies in the Keynesian school of thought are John Maynard Keynes. Let us see the subject matter of the macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, we study aggregate demand, aggregate supply, aggregate price, etc. Following are the important theories of the macroeconomics. First is theory of national income, theory of employment, theory of money, theory of general price level, theory of international trade, theory of taxation budget, theory of economic growth. It can be asked in MCQs and we will study the separate chapter on these theories in macroeconomics. Now let us see the classification of goods and services. The classification of goods and services, we can see that there are two types of the goods, final goods, intermediate goods. Final goods can be further categorized into two, that is consumption goods and the capital goods. Consumption goods can be further categorized into two, consumable goods, non-durable goods, semi-durable goods and services. We will study all these things in detail, one by one. The types of goods. Listen, there are two types of goods, final goods and intermediate goods. The goods which are directly consumed for final consumption is called final goods and the goods which are used for further production is called intermediate goods. Let us see the final goods. Final goods is of two types. One is consumption goods and the other one is capital goods. The good which is being consumed by the consumer for the satisfaction of the final wants is called consumption goods and the goods which is being purchased to manufacture goods, to manufacture other goods is called capital goods. Let us see what is final goods. Final goods refers to those goods and services that are meant for final consumption by the consumers. The final goods can be classified into two categories. One is consumption goods and the other one is capital goods. Let us see the consumption goods. Consumption goods refers to those final goods that are purchased by the consumer household to satisfy their wants. And the capital goods are those goods which are used for further production. Firstly, we will discuss the consumption goods. Consumption goods, that is goods which is being consumed by the consumer for final consumption, is called, or for the direct satisfaction of the wants, is called consumption goods. These goods are of types. First is durable goods. Second one is non-durable goods. Third is semi-durable goods, and the last one, that is fourth, is services. Let us see what is durable goods. Durable goods refers to those goods that can be used for a longer period, example car, computer, etc. Whereas non-durable goods, these goods are those goods which are meant for immediate consumption. Vegetables, milk, it should be consumed immediately, otherwise will be spoiled. So durable for the longer period, non-durable immediate consumption. The third is semi-durable goods. These are those goods which can be consumed for a longer period, less than durable but more than non-durable. Example, clothes, shoes, pen, etc. It can be held for a little bit longer period as compared to the non-durable. Let us see the services. Against other consumption goods, the services are non-material in nature. However, they satisfy human wants directly. Example, services of doctor, services of teacher, etc. Now let us discuss the capital goods. We have discussed the goods refers to those final goods that are purchased by the producer for using them in the process of production. Let us see the intermediate goods. Intermediate goods refers to those goods that are not readily consumed as final consumption by the consumer. These goods are used only as inputs raw material in the production process. Example, rubber purchased by the tire factory to manufacture a tire. We discuss the difference between the final goods and the consumer goods. On the basis of the usage, it is used for final consumption, whereas intermediate good, it is used for further production process. Final goods, they do not require any further processing, directly consumed. Intermediate goods, they are processed through stages of production. On the production boundary, let us see. Final goods, they have crossed the production boundary, and intermediate goods still not crossed the production boundary. On the basis of resale, just see, final goods cannot be resold. Intermediate goods are meant for resale. On the basis of inclusion of income, let us see, final goods should be considered at the time of valuation of national income. Intermediate goods cannot be considered at the time of valuation of national income. Now let us see stock and flow variables. Various variables used in the study of economics can be divided into two categories. We study the variables in the macroeconomics, in the economics, and these variables that we study can be categorized into stock and flow variables. Let us see what is a stock variable. A variable is said to be a stock variable if it is measured at a particular point of time. Example, capital. Here the time element is not attached. Opposite to that, a variable is said to be flow variable if it is measured during a period of time. Stock at a particular point of time, flow during a period of time. Such variables are measured over a time interval. It can be said that they have an element of time attached to it. Example, income earned during a month, interest on capital, and so on. Let us see the difference between stock and flow. Let us see what is the difference between stock and flow. Meaning, stock, it is measured at a particular point of time, whereas flow is measured during a period of time. Time element is not attached, time element is attached to it. Static variable, let us see the stock. These are static in nature, whereas flow variables are dynamic in nature. Example of the stock variable, bank deposits, water in a tank. Examples of the flow variable, just see, interest on bank deposits, water in a flowing stream, and so on. Let us see the very important topic, that is the circular flow. Circular flow is a very important topic. We will see what is circular flow of. Firstly, let us discuss the meaning. In an economy, various sectors such as household, firm, government, and foreign sectors work simultaneously. We have discussed earlier interlinkage between the different sectors. These sectors functions with mutual dependence. There is a continuous flow of expenditure and income and that of goods and services among these sectors. We have seen how the households and the firms are interconnected, and we have seen that the household provide factor services, firm make factor payment, firm provide goods, household make the payment for the goods. So here we have seen that circular flow is going on between the goods and between the money. Let us see the types of circular flow. There are two types of circular flow, real flow and the money flow. When the flow of goods and services between two sectors is called real flow, and the movement of money from one sector to another is called money flow. Let us see in detail. Let us see the circular flow. Real flow, flow of factor services from household to the firm, and corresponding flow of the goods and services from the firm to the household is called real flow. It means that the firm provide factor services, household provide factor services, and the firm provide goods and services, that is called real flow. Household gives factor services and firm gives goods and services. Money flow means what? It means that the movement of money from one sector to another. Firm provide factor payment and the household provide money at the time of purchasing the goods and services. So here we can say movement of money is going on. Here we can say movement of goods and services are going on. We will discuss all these things when we discuss the two sector model. Real flow we have seen. Household provide factor services and firm provide goods and services. Money flow also we have discussed. We have seen what is money flow. In a modern economy, money is the medium of exchange. When the household provide factor services to the firm, in return they receive the factor payment. And we have seen that the household firm provide factor services, factor payment, and the firm and the household make the money, pay the money to the firm at the time of purchasing the goods. So there is a movement of money. The money comes to the household in the form of factor services, and money finally reaches in the hands of the firm through the price of the goods and services. So here the flow of money is going on. Firstly, money comes in the hands of the household, then again the same money comes in the hands of the firm. We discuss the circular flow in a two-sector economy. In the two-sector economy, certain assumptions are there. Let us see the assumptions first. The economy consists of two sectors, namely household and the firm. In the two-sector model, only two sectors exist. One is household and the firm. It is assumed that the role of the government is zero. The economy considered closed economy. So this type of the situation only prevailed in the closed economic model. The household is spent, it is being presumed that whatever the money the household earn, the household spend the entire money at the time of purchasing goods and services. So these are the assumptions which we always keep in our mind at the time of talking about, or the time of opting the circular flow or two sector model. This is household and this is firm. Households provide factor services. Firm make the factor payment to the household. Firm manufactures goods and services. They provide the goods and services to the household. And in consideration of the goods and services, the households make the payment to the firm. Just try to see the things in little bit detail. Households provide factor services. They provide labor. They provide land. They provide capital. They provide entrepreneurship to the firm. In consideration of all these factor services, the firm make the payment to the household. The payment which the firm make to the household is called factor payment. For the land, the firm pay rent. For the capital, the firm pay interest, and so on. Firm uses the factor services. Firm hired the factor services. The question is why the firm has hired the factor services? So that the firm should manufacture goods and services. So firm manufacture the goods and services. The firm offer the goods and services to the household. Households purchase the goods and services, and after purchasing the goods and services, the household make the payment to the firm for the goods and services. So here we are seeing two flows, real flow and the money flow. The flow of goods and services going on, factor services and finished goods and services. And here the money flow is also going on. How? Payment of goods and services and factor payment. I hope the point is clear to you. That's all we have in this video. Thanks for watching. God bless you all.